the micro markets in San Diego. And, God bless the agents who are doing tons of transactions and know the micro markets compared to the agent who is like, I'll go everywhere. It's like, I know you'll go everywhere, but do you know the market everywhere?
Yeah. How's it going, guys? Welcome to Pfefferman and Friends, which I think is what we're calling. We'll see how it sticks. But today I'm here with my colleague and good friend, Jayson Yoss of Golden West Management, Inc. So Jayson is the founder and broker of Golden West, which is a pretty sizable property management company spanning over 3 states, Las Vegas, Nevada, Phoenix, Arizona, and here in San Diego, California. So Jayson has been in the real estate industry since 1999. He was actually at University of Arizona and had been interning with a handful of, real estate professionals from sales to management, and realized that there was a real need for property management. So you were at University of Arizona.
Your Wildcats.
And while you were having fun, I'm sure, there was also maybe some internships and some real estate. You studied psychology, but
I did.
You still use that today, but not as your main career.
Yes, I'm not a high school guidance counselor, which is about as much as I could have got at a psychology degree.
I studied poli-sci, so it's either you wait tables at Chili's or become a history teacher.
There we go. There we go.
Unless you want to be an attorney, which was not for me.
I think I just read on Instagram, Barstool Sports rated the University of Arizona, bear down, go Wildcats, the #1 party school in the nation. And I never saw any partying while I was there.
It's crazy.
I don't know how they came up with that, but I did find enough time to get an internship with a couple of top producers, and they showed me the ropes, and I had an amazing time, and it grew from there.
So what was it that, there's lots of different facets to real estate.
Right.
What was it that brought you to the property management side? Because that's not for the faint of heart, and it's not easy.
It's reality TV, and that's what brought me the drama every day. So just to be clear, I am from Orange County, California, and I interned for a top producer out there. And at that time, for what you could buy a bathroom in, say, the Newport Beach area, you can get a whole house where a bunch of students would live in it and pay your rent, and you'd be cash flowing. Is great. So the top producer is like, hey, I'm going to send my clients to buy in Arizona, and you're going to get your license and manage property. I was like, okay, sure. So I did a little bit of sales as well, but mostly I was getting into the property management side, and it just took off. Yeah, and that's where it went. But it was the drama. There was always something new every day, and especially in the beginning. And it was student housing. Yeah. So if you've ever tried to rationalize with a 18 to 21-year-old, or their parents coming off the top rope from Chicago or New York saying my son or daughters, so that's what I dealt with for the first part of my career, and it was fun.
So I know in most careers, when you start, you're the one rolling your sleeves up and getting dirty. So were you at the beginning answering those calls, from a college student saying my toilet's overflowing, or, I don't know how it happened, but there's a hole in my wall?
So a great story is that, for most universities, the turnover is in the summer. And so what would happen would be the kids would go home for the summer, but their lease extended to July. So they leave at the end of school in May. It's 110 degrees in Arizona.
Oh, yeah.
So they go home. So when we would do turnover at the end of June or July, whenever I would go and do these move out walkthroughs, and the power had been off, but these kids would leave food and everything. Oh, fridge, would just leave. I saw so many cockroaches so many times. I would have to wheel refrigerators out on my own, and I was just the most brutal thing. But it was the great lesson, because later on now, when I talk to my team, it's like, look, I've been there. I know what you're going through. But I also was able to help set those tenants and those landlords up for success. So reminding tenants, especially those age, hey, just a reminder, don't forget to keep the utilities on, or hey, it's a good idea to clear out the fridge. It just... Learning helps, progression helps you get better at what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, and with the tenants and the students, it's hey, you guys are learning.
Yeah.
You're young. Let me help give you some life lessons, because you're going to be a tenant for other people in the future. So here's what you can do.
Yeah.
to just make the transition a little easier.
And I was young at the time too. So, I mean, I just graduated college and was giving out advice to people who were just a
few years behind.
Yeah. You know, like, I'm pretty sure I saw you out before. So it was a great way to break into the business. And again, back then it was like, I was doing the accounting statements with Excel. I was like, had a paper, you know, those big binders with checks in and writing out the vendors. So I didn't know anything about business. Again, I have a psychology degree. I color with crayons at that point. I had no idea, but it was great to get going. And 20 plus years later, I'm like, I'm glad I have a little idea what we're doing.
So let's talk about that. And we'll get into some of the tech stuff later, but like, let's talk about your evolution for Golden West. So started in Phoenix. What brought you to San Diego and growth into Nevada? What did that look like?
I love it. So, you know, it wasn't the smartest way to grow. We just kept going city to city to city. And we weren't like huge in any one city. I just kept going. I mean, the University of Arizona is in Tucson, so we went to Phoenix right away. And then my parents had sold their company and moved to Nevada. So I spent a lot of time over there. I'm like, oh, well, what a great, let's have one in Vegas.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the way we evolved. And in the middle of this, the war was going on. So I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to take a time out and I'm going to go join the Marine Corps and I'm going to serve overseas. And I was married at the time. So I was, you know, my wife and I were just running the business from, like, if I was out in the field, as soon as I came back, I was on the computer. So there's just a couple of us running a business of, you know, 40, 50 properties. And
to now more than 1,200. So it's grown a little.
We've gotten, we're definitely getting over that 1,000 number is a big deal. But I remember when we had, you know, 20, 30, and the fundamentals are still there. But along the way, I've learned so many lessons. And again, I don't recommend going to all these different offices, making all these different offices right away. Get good at your bread and butter, at your location, grow to the point where you can take that next step. Yeah. But we just happened to, every time, you know, I moved, or every time it looked like another shiny object, we just did it. And so I got 3 offices now.
That's amazing.
I can't complain.
What would you say along that time, decades now, what do you think has been the biggest learning curve? Not to age us, but, you know, what do you think has been one of the biggest learning curves with either from starting the business, right, expanding to new markets, now having to manage people remotely? You know, I know Roy bebops around to the different offices, but, you know, what was the biggest learning curve, maybe mistake along the way?
If you want to learn how to continue to grow in business, the first and most important thing is to get a mentor. Okay. That was a game changer.
I can attest to that. Absolutely.
That was a game changer, a coach, a mentor, somebody that sees the perspective of what you're doing, or sees it from a different perspective. They can help you and provide you skills because they've been there. Number 2, surround yourself with quality people.
Yeah.
It starts with your first major hire, your first, you know, integrator if you're an EOS type of person, but you've got to have quality people around you.
Yeah.
And then the last thing,
and ones that you can trust.
That's
right. That's the biggest thing.
Culture fit is everything.
Yeah.
So I'm not the smartest man on the block, but the right culture fit and the right people surround you help you make better decisions. And finally, like, don't be afraid of the work. Don't be afraid of the work. All of us got into owning our own business because we wanted that freedom, but we don't realize that freedom is us doing showings on Sunday at 9:30 a.m. Exactly. When we got a house full of kids coming, you know? So just do the work. So those 3 things: a coach, a mentor, make sure you surround yourself with great people that you can trust, and then, you know, do the work. And over time, it's going to happen. It may be a year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, but you're going to get there.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, I mean, to your point of having a coach, having a mentor, I think is so powerful because, you know, I don't know why I thought of this at a very young age, that I should learn from other people's mistakes instead of being a bonehead and learning on my own. But what a way to go about it, to where you're able to maybe gain 10 years of experience and wisdom in a year and a half because you have the right team surrounding yourself. And, you know, with you having you know, satellite offices, or I guess offices in other states,
right,
you need that team that you can trust. So you're not stressing about is everything going the way it's supposed to there?
Absolutely. And I think especially when you talked about having satellite or multiple offices, the part about needing people to trust is so important because look, you can scale and you can slim down positions. You only need like one call center for every office, but you do need in every location a leader that you can trust because you cannot be there and influence your staff. You need to have someone else there who can do that in your stead.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, and when you're having, however it is that you guys coordinate and your strategy for overseeing everyone, having that person that you can call and be like, hey man, give me the rundown. Or hey woman, lady, miss, give me the rundown of like what's going on. What's the week been like for you guys?
What I got from the Marine Corps was the way they bunch hierarchy. Number one, if there are two people there, one person's always in charge, okay? Number two, they usually worked in some kind of component of threes, like, hey, one Marine is in charge of, 3 junior Marines. And then, you had 3 squads and 3 platoons and 3 companies made up a battalion. They always had some kind of hierarchy. And so I don't have an MBA. So I took the Marine Corps kind of, this is the way we do heuristics. And I was able to do that in order to create a reporting system and a leadership system that works. So somebody was like, hey, that's my boss. That's my direct report. That's who I report to. And then they had a boss all the way up to teddy bear to me.
Yeah. And that's, I feel like exactly how it should be. And it simplifies things. Like it makes life so much easier. If you don't know who to talk to or what to do when there's an emergency, all heck's going to break loose.
And if you have too many people that you're overseeing, are you really able to give them that mentorship, that leadership, that guidance so they get better? Because I hate to say that it's all about making people better, but it's all about making other people better, onboarding them, training them, and then giving them the tools so they can make decisions on your behalf.
Yeah, exactly right. I from my time as a pilot, I learned that, SOPs, standard operating procedures, are like the most important thing. Right. And so, we've even gone as far as when we're training and learning a task, I record it all.
Yeah.
And we have a written breakdown of step by step. So now the training is there.
Look, I want to tell you that SOPs, again, another military thing, but as well as a pilot, which is instrumental in being able to make sure you're efficiently going through a checklist to get things right.
Yeah.
It gives people the 70% solution. Okay, like, hey, where do I go to find out how I do this? A move-in walkthrough, a move-out walkthrough. It doesn't replace thinking, but it does give them the steps to set them up for success.
Yeah.
And at least they can go somewhere and find the basics. And if they still have a question, then they can raise their hand, having a guideline of what to do. And again, it's empowering your team to help you be successful. Otherwise, I'm going to have to micromanage everything. That doesn't work.
No, absolutely not. Let's zoom in to San Diego.
Right.
How's the rental market been? We had this COVID pandemic era that we're now on the other side of, and rentals were crazy and prices skyrocketed, and it was the wild, wild west. It was a crazy time. So now that we're on the backside of that, and I feel like things have maybe started to stabilize, how's the rental market been in San Diego?
So the rental market in San Diego is excellent. Now, I'm not going to say it's on fire like it was, but 100%, if you price the property appropriately, if the property is clean and rent ready, you are going to get an A-rated tenant. I'm talking about 680 better credit score, making 2.5 times the rent, and they're going to move in and most likely stay there on average, probably somewhere around 32 to 36 months. Now, if you try to push well over the market rates, okay, and the last time you painted was before COVID, the last time you changed the floor was before COVID, if you're like, I don't need to clean it, I'll just wait till somebody rents it, you might sit for a while. So the stats bear, depending on the type of market and what city, your rent ranges between $2,500 and $3,000 for your average rents, and your time on market is about 17 days.
So the demand is there.
The demand is there. I mean, we're short by 80,000 units according to San Diego County's last check. So, I mean, give or take, I'm taking that with a grain of salt, but there is a need for housing.
Yeah. And so what are tenants looking for? Does it solely revolve around price, or is it I've just, you know, I just sit back and I know that there's nothing else that I can do. I'm going to spend a boatload of money. So hopefully I can get these extra amenities. Or what is it that, you know, tenants are looking for in these properties?
Got it. Now, this is what I've seen the most. You got to split single family and multifamily or the condo. Like you got to split those two when discussing, you know, what are tenants looking for. Now, on the boutique multifamily side, they want amenities. Okay, so
and this is larger, not like a 1 to 4. This is more than 4.
Sure.
Units.
Well, this is important because your ADU or your infill development rarely has a pool. It rarely has, you know, inside laundry or even laundry on site. Yeah. So a lot of times, what we're seeing in that you know 1 to 2 bedroom search parameter is, do I have laundry? Do I have parking?
Parking, that's exactly.
I mean, parking is one of the biggest things in San Diego. Is it off street? Is it on street? Is it covered? Can I get a garage? With laundry being a close second, patio versus yard. So amenities drive the smaller bedroom value search pattern. That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which makes sense. I mean, you know, I see with Emily, who's been looking for a studio. Like,
oh my gosh, yeah.
Okay. Here's the neighborhood we want, like she wants to be in. Here's kind of the priorities. Parking, few and far between. Laundry, like you said, few and far between.
Right.
Some of these units that I've seen that are garages that are like 35 feet deep by 10 feet wide.
Yep.
It's wild. It blows my mind. But there's an ask for every seat. You know, there are people that are renting these things. But I think that's interesting to hear that, because it makes sense. But to hear you say it is like, oh yeah, that really is.
And I want to take it a step further and say, not only is there, you know, a space for everybody, but if you're logical and conservative on your pricing, okay, make the property rent ready.
Yeah.
Okay, be conservative on your price. You'll get somebody who finds that unit, they'll make it their own, and they don't leave. Zillow's 2023 study, I think, said that the 3 main reasons people leave are like life changes, job changes. It rarely comes down to like, I don't like my landlord, or like they need an actual something to change in their life before they move.
Well, and that's something I found with our personal rental properties that, you know, I make sure that we're not setting a new high comp.
Yeah.
I want to be under that because I don't want people to be like, oh gosh, I'm paying this much per month and I could move next door for something nicer that's maybe $50 a month less or $100 a month less. Right. I'd rather be under that number so the grass is not greener on the other side.
People forget, and I've been in this business just like you long enough to know, after the market crash of 2008, by about 2010, 2011, I could not raise the rent on renewal. In fact, if I was trying to raise the rent, the tenant would look me square in the face and go, the guy down the street has the exact same property with extra amenities, and they're going to charge me $100 to $200 less.
Yeah.
And they can move. Now, we haven't seen that in a little while, but real estate is cyclical. And I just caution my landlords to be conservative so you get a quality tenant that takes care of the home like it was their own and pays the rent on time. And then, because the market is the way it is, we can do conservative increases at rent renewal.
Yeah.
But there will come a time when I can raise more, but there'll also be a time where I can't raise at all because the tenant will go down the street.
Yeah, exactly right. And the property owner has to take into consideration, if that tenant moves out, guaranteed a month of vacancy.
Vacancy kills.
Yeah. So you've got that. You've got to market the property. So there's a cost there. You're going to have to repaint. You may have to change the floors. You may have to change a window because, you know, it's not operating as it should. And the tenant, you never knew because the tenant never complained about it. You know, it can be a thousands of dollar expense that you just blew through at your extra $100 a month.
Let's take a 1 bedroom at $2,000 and you want to raise it 10%. Well, I think California just came up with a cap on their multifamily, right? 8.6. Thank you. Just released that. But just use 5%. You want to raise it $100, and the tenant says like, "Hey, I can't afford that, so I'm going to move out." Okay, that extra $1,200 that you were going to make a year. Let's say factor in between all the turnover costs, your month of vacancy, and your marketing costs. Let's say that's equivalent to 2 months. So you just call yourself $4,000 to make $1,200.
Yeah, It's not worth it.
If you found common ground, they said, how about 3%? Okay, I'm a big advocate of raising the rents during this market a minimal amount because you got to keep up with cost things break and you're going to have to put money back in the property. But if you push beyond what a tenant is willing to pay, they'll leave.
Yeah.
And it's not worth it. Vacancy is your biggest killer. And for those with a duplex, triplex, or even one unit, you don't have the amount of units to be able to cover that loss.
Yeah,
if you got a
right.
20 unit complex and one goes vacant, like, okay, it's not the end of the world, but when you got a 2 unit complex.
And it also depends on when they purchased. So if you bought the property years ago and it's paid off, or you have a very low interest rate, or your cost of operating that property is low, well, then it's not as big of a deal if you can, if you can have a basis, a weighted average that still can support itself.
It's back to what you talked about. What are your goals? Are you going to have this property for 30 years? Or are you going to try to purchase a property, do some upgrades, hold it for 2 to 4 years, and then upleg it another property? It based on your goals is how you're going to approach the tenant, how you're going to approach the rent question. But overall, if I were to give anybody as an investor an advice besides number 1, figure out what your goals are, is number 2, be conservative on price so you get tenants who are going to take care of the property like it was their own. And especially if you have multifamily, when you put in a problem tenant, it affects the whole unit. So that's why we want quality people that are like, I like where I live, I like what I pay, and I'm going to do what I can to make sure that it's a win-win for everybody.
Exactly right. Exactly. Have you seen a mindset shift for landlords? Are they either thinking, I should be charging more? Or are they afraid of, okay, I've got these tenants, I don't want to lose them? Has there been a change over the last 5 years that you guys have seen?
This is a great question. Over the last 5 years, have landlords changed their mindset? I would say there's always that 80% are doing about what you're supposed to do, what you can read on the internet in terms of like, trying to buy a property, trying to take care of it, understanding that we want to take care of tenants. But you got fringe on 10% on both sides. One, the slumlord that I put up on the internet, they won't fix anything. They are just the worst. And then they're wondering when California absolutely crushes them. Okay. And then it's the over conservative landlord who's afraid to do anything to the tenant, wants to placate them with everything. And then 5 years in, they're wondering why they're 30% below market. And now they can't catch up with their rents. And
because you're limited, you're
correct.
capped at how much you can raise it every year.
That's correct. So many landlords, after the AB 1482 passed in 2019 and went into effect in 2020, so many landlords were caught having raised their rent in forever because they're like, well, I don't want the tenant to leave. So they were let's say $1,000, $1,500 behind in rent, and they had a multi-unit, 4-plex, 6-plex, 8-plex, and they were stuck.
Yeah.
They were so below market. And a lot of them were like, I got to sell.
And then when you're selling, you're not getting the value.
That's correct.
Because now a property owner or a buyer is looking at it, and when they're underwriting the property, they're saying, well, interest rates are this, my cost of carrying is this, and unless you're going to sell it at a big discount,
correct,
it's not enough value add because, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can't just terminate a tenant's lease or not renew them unless there's permits pulled on the property or if you're moving back into it or something like that, right?
Even if you take what's written in the local legislation for, let's say, San Diego specifically, I hear attorneys say all the time, well, the legislation said you can terminate a tenancy for X, Y, and Z reasons. That's great. But in reality, the common practice in San Diego is if I give my tenant an eviction notice, for, just cause, okay, or even, without cause, okay, getting them to leave is a totally different issue.
Yeah.
If a tenant is $1,000 under market, they're going to look at you and go like, where am I going to go? And you're like, oh, well, I'll give you cash for keys. I'll give you a month's rent, or I'll give you 2 months rent. And they're like, that's not going to make up because I'm going to have to pay, 10 times what I'm paying now. So they just squat. And the way the court is impacted and the way the laws are, you could find yourself 6 months to a year just to get them to get out. So,
and they're not paying rent the entire time. You're not covering your cost of ownership.
And attorneys aren't cheap.
I
have plenty of landlords who have tried it. do yourself an exercise and go to the San Diego County website and download the form for the eviction and see. I mean, it's huge and all the boxes you have to check. And if you do one thing wrong, from the notice to pay or quit, okay, to the filing, you'll start back all the way back at zero. So you're paying an attorney, and some attorneys are more than others. But if you have a professional tenant or a tenant who just wants to continue to drag it out, it can cost you 10, 20, 30,000. And it's not fair. You're right. But an impacted court system, legislation that favors a tenant, and the fact that, this is what you voted for, it just becomes a huge money drain. I mean, imagine paying 25, 30,000 to evict one tenant and you have a fourplex. What do you think the other tenants are going to do? They're going to be like, hey man, give me 20 grand and I'll leave. That saves you 5 grand. That saves you 10 grand. Crazy.
That's crazy. That's crazy. And then your back's up against a wall.
Again, we have on my YouTube channel regular, monthly, we go out to evictions. And again, these aren't people that we put in our own properties. These are landlords who have come to us and say, I put in the wrong tenant, or hey, I've had a tenant a long time and now I'm asked them to leave and they don't want to leave. And this is the end state of a process that's been 6 months, a year. I have one up there that's been 4 years. I mean,
oh my gosh,
it's crazy, but this is the way the legislation is. So again, to your investors who are purchasing property, what are your goals? And then be conservative, because you want to get people in the property that are going to pay the rent on time and treat the property like it was their own.
Yeah, exactly right. So I mean, I know we touched on what landlords' rights or what their rights are not.
Sure.
Are there any misconceptions in favor of the landlords that maybe people don't realize? Or is it really like, what, for a landlord, it could be a tough road to hoe, and what's the value? Why should someone buy an investment property for reasons other than, if everything's great and you can cash flow and it's a passive source, or if they use Golden West Management,
Sure.
It can be more of a passive source of income.
I put it this way. The horror stories that I'm highlighting, they occur every day. You just look on the clerk's website on San Diego County. There are anywhere between 10 to 15,000 evictions. That being said, there are hundreds of thousands of rental properties in San Diego County.
Yeah.
So it's not the norm. The people or the landlords that fall into this trap don't take heed to the appropriate warnings of things that we just said. So how can you best protect your property as a landlord?
Yeah.
Number one, screening. Set the property up so that it's rent ready, price it appropriately so you have a line around the block of people who want your property, and then screen appropriately. Unfortunately, I just can't take the song and dance story that a prospect might submit. I'm looking at hard data, credit, okay, verified pay stub and income. If they have a rental history from an actual property manager or a professional apartment complex, that's what I'm looking at to determine, is the tenant appropriately rated and qualified to rent my property. When I do that, the risk mitigation goes from I have maybe a 15, 20% chance of getting the wrong tenant to, let's say I have a 1% Golden West in the city of San Diego. We have never had to evict a tenant that we placed. Now, I've evicted tenants that we didn't place, and it's been a nightmare. And I have worked out situations where we had a tenant that maybe they lost their job, or had a situation where we found a mutual agreeable number on that. But I've never had to evict. And the reason why, the risk mitigation starts with screening.
Yeah. And I mean, proof's in the pudding right there. Out of the 1,000+ properties that you manage, it's never been with a tenant that you placed, which is huge. And there's a lot to be said for that.
And it's because we are so conservative and so safety conscious in San Diego, where once the tenant takes possession of the property, it's theirs. And you're now subject to the fact that the laws are geared to protect the tenant, which I'm not opposed to that. I would like to see adjudication of matters be quicker. Okay, I would love to have an issue where if there's a dispute between landlord and tenant, whether it's not paying rent or landlord didn't fix something, I don't want this to take 6 months or a year to get adjudication. I would love this to be like Arizona. In 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to be in front of the judge. You got 5 minutes. The judge is going to say, hey, landlord, you messed up. Go start back over and do X, Y, and Z for the tenant. Or, hey, tenant, yes, you got to go.
Yeah.
And you got a week to get out.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see. But we have an impacted court system. We have a set of legislation that makes that process a lot more difficult in San Diego.
Yeah.
So once the tenant's in, It's a very tenant-friendly state, and you could potentially look at a long time before you get them out without rent, paying a lot of money to attorneys to get them to be evicted.
And so that's where it comes down to landlord's goals, right?
That's right.
Because are you looking for appreciation? Because San Diego will continue to have that appreciation. Are you looking for ease of maintenance and ownership potentially, which you may get in other states? What's the goal, and what are you looking to accomplish in your day-to-day and long-term?
And that's what realtor partners like yourself, when they bring a client to the table and they say like, hey, they're looking for X, Y, and Z, and we're looking in this area, can you tell me what the rental comps? I can pull rental comps for a zip code by bedroom bath. I can pull rental comps for a specific property. But what I can't do is I can't take out a crystal ball and rub it and tell you what's going to happen, especially if I don't have goals in mind.
Exactly.
If you're not telling me that you're looking to hold long-term or short-term, or if you're looking for, a property that has a lot of capital improvements, but you're going to go unit by unit to take care of them. If you don't tell me what your goals are, we can't set up a plan that's tailored to reach those goals.
Do 1 bedrooms rent easier than 2 bedrooms? Are 2 bedrooms better? Like, what's your input if a buyer came to you and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about buying a 5-unit complex, and there's one that has 2 bedroom, 1 bath across the board, and there's 5 units that are all 1 bed, 1 bath." Do you have an opinion on that?
There are a lot of factors, but I will tell you 2 bedrooms.
And let's assume same neighborhood.
Sure.
All that's the
2 bedrooms are always in the multi-unit, especially the boutique space. 2 bedrooms are always the creme de la creme.
Okay.
There's so much you can do with 2 bedroom, from have a huge family in it to a roommate situation to a working professional situation.
Yeah, there's more versatility.
That's correct. So that's why you're able to drive rents on a 2 bedroom. And a studio is, of course, on the bottom end. They are easy to rent, but to maintain long-term numbers is very difficult.
Yeah, and if you have someone who lives in a studio and maybe they have a significant other that wants to move in with them, that's a little more difficult. So having a 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom, and if you're working from home and parking and everything else.
Parking is a big driver in San Diego right now, especially for infill development. I mean, if you have a brand new 100-unit complex, okay, parking is built in. But a lot of the infill...
Well, not in complete communities now. So
I was just going to say, for infill, especially complete communities, you're getting 1 space per unit. So if you have a 2 bedroom or you have a 1 bedroom, it's a couple sharing it. You've only got 1 space. And now if anybody's been at North Park at 5 to 7 p.m. on a weekday, or good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, exactly right.
You're finding a space.
You're driving around. You're circling. Yeah, and all those bike lanes, people aren't parking far away and riding their bikes, or biking to work.
That being said, though, if we were talking single family, the 3 bedroom, 2 bath is the king of rentals. Yeah. I mean, that thing performs over and over again. It has enough to be as versatile as the 4 bedroom, which needs a lot. You need bigger to fit it, and it outperforms the 2 bedroom all day long. Yeah. So the 3.2 or the 3.5, which is I like, that's the moneymaker. Just pick an area that's decent. A 3.2 or 3.5 is going to deliver you all day long. You don't need a pool. You don't need lush landscaping. Cut down on your overall amenities. Yeah. Get a nice box, 12 to 13 on 1,400 square feet, 3.2, that will perform all day long.
And that's great insight. I mean, really, especially for, a new investor who is maybe wanting to start their real estate portfolio. They don't own any investments yet. And they're like, okay, what's my next step here?
A lot of your step ups go from a condo to a 3.2. Yeah. And then when they go to that forever home, when they go to that 3,000, 3,500 square foot, they've got the 2.5 kids, they've got the cars, they're established. If they're not ready to sell, or if they have that 3% mortgage rate, then yourself, you've called me before, my realtor partners have called me and said well, can they rent it? Yeah, you can absolutely rent it, and you can rent it for a long time.
Yeah. And so, before we jump off, I guess, are the people that are calling you, are they inheriting houses? Are they buying property? What is your type of client that you're seeing now more recently? In San Diego, there's a lot of
turnover because
this is great.
People are passing away.
I got to be honest. Like the two things that I've seen the most is, number one, the step up buyer has a 3% interest rate, and it doesn't make any sense to sell. Yeah. I know that the housing market is good, but it may not be as fire as it once was. And so a lot of my realtor partners like yourself are saying, you don't have $500,000 in equity. Why don't you rent it, cover your mortgage, pay it down a little bit, use that as your first investment. Well, let's talk next year or the year after, and we'll see where the market is. The second is mom or dad moves into a home or moves in with a family member, and we take it over for a year to 3 years. And when they pass, they typically, it's in a trust, and what we're seeing is the family say, hey, let's get it back to the realtor partner, let's sell it. Yeah. Okay, once mom and dad do pass away, the family isn't renting it anymore. Yeah. But when they move mom and dad out into assisted living, or they're moving in with a sibling, we end up renting the property.
Because they may not be ready. There's an emotional side. Absolutely. The families lived there since it was built. The kids grew up there.
Absolutely.
And so they're not ready, but then it changes. And not to mention the fact, when the kids inherit the house, there's a step up in property taxes. There's additional expenses where maybe it doesn't make sense.
That's correct. That's correct. I think the final client that we do see is we still have investors buying in San Diego. It's never too late to make your first purchase investment. Yeah. And so I still get the call, or my team gets a call regularly. Hey, I just bought this property and I'd like to rent it out. What can I get in rents? Let's put together a long-term plan. And we do it to the tune of, 12 to 15 new clients every month in San Diego. Now, back when the great sell-off was happening, we might be bringing on 10 to 12 new clients, but we had 3 to 4 clients going out the door saying, hey, I'm taking my money, I'm cashing in, and because I bought in 2012, 2015, 2018, but I'm walking away with 500,000.
And they may not even be exchanging into a new property. They may just be selling it, taking the cash and moving on, paying their taxes happily, and it's all good.
And so my takeaway would be, what has made us so successful is, number one, it's the realtor partners that we work with, okay? Because we're not stepping on toes. We don't do sales. So they trust us to go like, hey, here's my client. Yeah. Please take care of them. But they know they're not going to find that client buying another property with us, or just that never happens. We don't do any sales. Number two, this is our 21st year in the space, okay? We're a week away from 21 years. So this is all I've ever done besides being a Marine, and this is what our focus is. So we're able to provide very detailed data-driven advice. Like, this has been working for a couple years, so this is why we're recommending it. Yeah. And lastly, and I think to your point about it, it's just about taking care of people and setting up them up for success so they can reach the goals they want.
Yeah, exactly right. Look, as a real estate agent, a broker, I want my clients, I try to be a professional. I want to be the expert when it comes to real estate sales. Right. I want to refer them to the expert for property management, because it's a bad look for me if my referrals are doing a terrible job. Yeah. And so having the partners that are pros is priority number one. Having the partners that have the experience and are willing to say, hey, this may not be a good deal for you. Yeah. Maybe this isn't something you should consider buying if you are looking at it. Or instead of this, talk to Daniel, maybe look for a property that has that. So I think there's a ton of value in having these partners and these trusted resources. Right. And for an end user, really leaning on those people. Yeah. I think is the biggest and most important takeaway. Real estate will always be valuable. Yeah. There's never a question. And as long as you're able to find something that you can afford and justify the purchase and have it all make sense, it's a no-brainer.
I would agree.
So tell everyone, how can they find you?
I appreciate that. Again, thanks for having me on. Golden West Management, you can find us on the web at goldenwestmanagement.com. Check out our Instagram or our YouTube channel. We just dropped our latest eviction. This is where the county recorder had a paperwork snafu and a triplex that was supposed to be all locked out. The constable showed up and only locked out one unit.
Oh, gosh.
It's like, oh, I'm sorry. Well, we only have this unit on here to lock out.
Wait another 6 months to get us back.
A year in the making already. And the professional tenant who was holding everything up gladly let the sheriff in, showed him over this door and that door, but they're like, yep, can't come in my house.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. And you have a podcast.
I do.
Let's plug the podcast.
Yes. Cash Flow Podcast. We talk about properties and profits and how every member of our community, again, real estate agents, investors, flippers, mortgage lenders, how they're able to showcase some wins and some losses in their real estate investment career.
I mean, I was on it. I think I was the first one.
You were
actually.
The first one.
So, you know,
45 guests later. Thank you so much for being on and kicking us off. And we had a great talk about how I
got started. Yeah. You know, I had help, which there's nothing wrong with that. My parents started me with my first property, and I just kept parlaying it into the next thing. And I learned a lot along the way. And, you know, I think I've been able to apply on the personal side what I've done and what I've accomplished when helping clients. And it's like, you know, it's like the realtor that rents and is trying to convince someone why they should buy a house.
Daniel crushed an 8-unit complex. It's one of my favorite purchases that I've seen. I was very jealous of Mike. He just crushed this one. I wish I would have bought that one. And I love it. It was my introduction to like, oh my gosh, like this guy just swooped on this. Great deal.
Yeah,
I'm sure. I mean, so that's why I said earlier, when you're talking to clients or referring clients, it's not because you don't know, you actually have this in your portfolio.
And it's fun and I enjoy it. And that's where I think the difference is with us. We like what we do. Yeah. You know, and I think that translates, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. So Jayson, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
I enjoyed it.
Daniel. Yeah.
Cool.